Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to Navigating Adult Autism. I am Mary, and I'm here with Heather, Elizabeth, Tara, Dawn, Cynthia, and Kara. And today's episode is about expectations for our adult children on the spectrum. Some couple profound, some are high functioning. We are just 7 moms with a lot of perspectives, opinions, and experience in this field. And we're still navigating our way. And like I said, today we are talking about expectations, and that's a wide topic. And I'm going to hand it over to Heather to start it off tonight and just talking about people's expectations on our children, our own expectations, relatives' expectations, teachers, all sorts of expectations. So what do you say, Heather?
Hello, it's Heather.
What do you say?
I say a lot about this subject. I feel
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about that, first of all, I had read an article many years ago that was talking about how low expectations is the worst thing like we can do to somebody, regardless of whether they have a disability or not, because it affects people and, you know, what they're going to end up doing. So, yeah, for us, I think with Zachary being on the profound end and, you know, not having conversational speech or anything like that, I just think about in the earlier years, I'll never forget, we had a 5th grade teacher that basically just wanted to teach him how to lick envelopes or wet them, I guess, with a sponge. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be really distasteful. And, you know, people in the special education world may consider that a life skill. This mama doesn't. I can teach them to figure out an envelope. What I needed them to do was have high enough expectations to teach him the things that I felt like they were there to help me with that I'm not an expert on. So, you know, you have to kind of tackle that. I think we've all probably done that in an IEP situation where goals are being set and different things. And it's just like, is that really all we've got going? That we're going to try to get 5 out of 7 attempts out of, you know. So we fought that our whole life with Zachary. He's 22. I think now as an adult, and for the most part nonverbal, I mean, he's got a couple of words he puts together, like pumpkin patch this week.
It wasn't Christmas tree?
It wasn't Christmas tree because he thinks you got to get past the pumpkin patch. So that's what he's, you know, kind of obsessing over right now is pumpkin patch because he knows Christmas is coming.
After the pumpkin patch.
Yeah. But he's not going to respond to anything. You're generally going to, you know, like you saw him the other day and you said, I think, how are you?
Yeah, I said, hi, Zachary, how are you?
He said, I'm good.
Yeah, he did. It was great.
So there's practice things that he has, but he doesn't do that. But I find in the community, and that's why we started the page that we have on Facebook with him,
which is
Everyday Adventures with Zachary.
And worth reading.
Yes, very good.
So we just felt like he was invisible to people. I mean, I think that word comes up because they have no expectation of him, I guess, talking to them or being able to communicate in any way. And I think a lot of times that the nonverbal idea is connected to like, you know, just, is he smart? Is he understanding what's happening around him, even if he can't talk? The answer is yes, typically yes. Mm-hmm. He understands a lot more than he's able to communicate back. And there's way more ways to communicate than just your voice. So I think all that stuff. So I do think it's important. I think as parents, we've probably all struggled with this. There's been times where maybe I thought maybe he wouldn't be able to do something. And then, you know, he was able to accomplish it with a certain therapist or something like that. But I can tell you that I think my disappointment in this area, after 12 years of school, I can name, 4 people probably that really had a high enough expectation for him and really brought out skills that like he was growing for sure. He wasn't napping. He was growing at school. So, yeah, but I mean, I think as adults, it just gets worse. I think it's not positive generally. When we go out in the community, it very rarely is it positive. I hate to say that because I know people are like, you know, most people are good and everything. And I think that's probably true. But I just feel like people don't know what to do. And they just assume, they make assumptions. And it's really awful to just assume when you're talking about someone's expectations, what they're able to do or think about or anything like that. So it's definitely reared its ugly head in a negative way, but then also in a positive way. Like I say, the people that have been in his corner that truly see him and his, you know, ability to achieve stuff, those are the people that I've stayed connected with all 20 years since his diagnosis. Those are my deepest friends, some of them, that saw the potential. Like, that's the kind of people I want my son around, to be honest. And that's across family, friends. I don't really care. Like, if you don't have respect for the person and give them some sort of, you know, expectation, I probably don't want to spend much time with you, with him around. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's important. Yeah. I know everybody has all sorts of
that's a good
examples,
point, being around people that are, I expect you to talk to my son, or, you know. Yeah, I just was thinking, wow, that's true. I really don't want to be around people that don't engage with him or expect.
Or they talk to you.
Right. They don't talk to your kid. I mean, that's say hi to Zachary. And if he doesn't say hi to you back, I'll be sure and say something to you. Yeah. But definitely give him a shot at it, because he answered Mary when she asked him.
It was so appropriate. It was great.
Yeah.
And even if he didn't answer it, that's okay too.
It's totally fine. At least you are acknowledging his presence. Yes. I think everyone wants to be acknowledged, whether you think they're super social or not. Right. Yeah, I definitely think that's important.
Right. Yeah. Right. So your frustration comes a lot with the community still, you think?
It does. I mean, that's the reason, again, that we started the page, because we can't go out 2 times in a row and have like a positive. He's normally ignored, or they ask me something, or they shoot a look, or, you know, they step away, or they move their kids out of the way, or all sorts of craziness that I think, you know, adults should understand. And maybe I don't know what that stems from, but probably not being around anybody with a disability, which kind of leads back to that whole isolation issue. This is a group of people that have disabilities that are sometimes not seen as much as other, I mean, for sure. And that's an issue. So, for instance, like, I just put a video up about Zachary putting, in OT, he figured out how to put short socks on. Well, I sit on the floor and put his socks on for the last 20 years, right? I'm 48. I will not always be able to just sit in the floor. Like, even now, it's like, it's hard, you know, but I mean, 20 years from now, like, that's a really important skill. And what was interesting to me, and I think, you know, that kind of psychology of like, what are people thinking or whatever, but it's funny that those are the times, like, I'm graciously trying to show you. I'm not saying he can't do this, he can't do that, he can't do this, he can't do that. I'm trying to show you, like, real life. He put socks on for the first time in an OT session.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
But what's interesting, though, people don't know what to do with that. Like, our group would comment, "Oh my gosh, way to go, Zachary." You know, any other special needs family understands that. But if you go out and you talk about, like, well, he can't put his socks on, people just, again, they feel that awkwardness that starts happening.
They don't know how to respond.
They don't know how to respond. It's like, this isn't a pity thing. I'm telling you, I want you to understand our life like we try to understand yours, so we can all have the support that we need. Right. And no one needs to pity my son. We do whatever we have to do for him, but we could be excited that he put on socks. Just like I'm excited that some other kid got their driver's license, since we just talked about transportation recently. I mean, I'm happy for others. That comes naturally, but I mean,
that they achieved their goal wherever they were at.
Yeah. So basically, the sock thing is just an example of me trying to share, like, because I think sometimes the concept of autism is, you know, it's personality, it's a tone of voice. It's really not just that. There's all sorts of things that go with it. People don't know what fine motor skills are.
Right.
I'm going to talk about fine motor skills every day almost. So, and they're like, I don't even know what that is. So I just think it's interesting. So just trying to educate people enough to know that he's like a real person that has real thoughts. He does funny things. And he does more than you think he's going to do, almost always.
Right.
So I think that's the beauty in having positive, high expectations for everyone. I'm not saying my expectation would be college for him. That's not an expectation that makes sense.
Right.
But within our realm, what can I expect? And yes, I'd love for him to be independently brushing his teeth or putting his socks on, or those are all great things.
Right.
So
To keep working on.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Would you
Right.
rather someone ask you, like, be totally honest and ask you what, fine motor skills are, or
Yes.
would you, then rather than just being weird?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, the weirdness is, I'd rather somebody just come up and say, maybe try to say hi to Zachary. And then I might be able to tell
Right.
you, I might be able to say my reaction is going to help you along. I'm not I don't want people to struggle to like figure out how to, talk to us or include us in something. But definitely asking questions is better than staring. And, I'm sure all of us have had that issue before at some point. And I just think as adults, it's just, I don't know, it just seems to be worse than it was when he was
I agree. And I was just
cute
thinking,
and little.
at a grocery store that hires a lot of people with disabilities, I recently was there, and I feel
Can we
like,
say the grocery store?
I think we should.
Hy-Vee.
Thank you, Hy-Vee, for
Yeah,
hiring
Hy-Vee.
many people with disabilities. It's excellent, and I love it. And I've seen a few students there that I've had in the past, or at the schools I've been at, not necessarily mine, but I'm always at the checkout. When I'm checking out, I always feel like it's my job to educate that checker or the typical bagger, and I was just there the other day, and I didn't catch it at first, but there was he was there. He kept talking about all the food that he was putting in the bag so they were behind me, and there was a typical kid there, couldn't give a rip what he was saying, and just really ignored him. And it just hurt. That still like hurts my heart. I still expect people talk to him, acknowledge. He was so excited. There was a Cool Ranch Dorito, something.
That is super exciting.
Yeah, but it was like a Frito. It was, I don't know what it is. but-
Fritos, Doritos. Oh,
Yes, yeah. So
My husband works for Frito-Lay.
So he was so excited to tell that, and this other kid was just like, not even making eye contact with them. And I thought, I just had high expectations. Well, everyone should be talking to him and acknowledging him and working with him. But, having said that, he's working there. It's great. But like I said, I didn't even have eyes on him, but I could hear it. And I thought, yeah. And so I turned. I'm like, yeah, he's on the spectrum. I didn't say as much as I wanted to, but so that's twofold. Thank you, Hy-Vee. And second of all, typical kids, please be nice to everybody. I know that's a be kind on T-shirts and everything, but I still expect more from people, even at Hy-Vee, to acknowledge the child they're not a child, they're an adult, putting their groceries away and say, hey, have a good day. Thank you. And talk to them. I always make a point doing that. Elizabeth?
Yeah. It's really, I'm glad you brought that point up. In the work I do, we went to a middle school and did some training, and it was called Recognizing Abilities. And it was just teaching middle schoolers about different diagnoses, and mostly developmental. And, we went through different exercises. We explained some things. Then we, assigned role play and had them build gingerbread houses. And one person was assigned a diagnosis. And it was just a wonderful experience. We spent the whole day. About a week later, we got an envelope, of one of those big manila envelopes, and it was full of letters from the kids. And the overwhelming thing that they said was, I didn't know I could approach them. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I didn't want to make them upset. I didn't want to throw them off. I didn't want to confuse them. And they said, with this training, now I will always
Oh,
say hello.
that's
I
wonderful.
will wave.
Love
And
that.
like you said, whether or not that person acknowledges, because I know Nathan, he might not say hi, but he begins to recognize those that are saying hi, that are
Yeah.
giving him the time. And then one day he will come and start to approach that person because he knows that person is interested and cares. But really, it was interesting. Just tears and tears when we were going through these letters, all of them except one. And that just said,
That was
I
good
just-
feedback. Did you ask
love
for that
that.
feedback from the school?
No.
Okay.
The school, the kids had such a great time. We did 3 different classes, and they had such a good time that they came up with that and surprised us with those letters.
That's good.
Handwritten
Awesome.
letters.
I like that.
Jason and I did that at Ozark South when we had a wonderful principal there that invited us in every April, and we came into Zion's classroom every year and read books. And actually, Hannah read a book about being a sibling with autism, and
Which we'll cover that later too, by the way.
Yeah.
Siblings. Yes.
And I felt like that, us coming in and creating that open discussion with us, saying that maybe Zion can't tell you what he needs, in this classroom, but, if you have any questions right now, come and, ask us right now. And it was really cool, some of the questions that they had for us. They felt like it was a safe environment to ask us, because sometimes he had behavior in class and stuff like that, and it was, uncomfortable. So
Right.
it was, that's why I asked Heather. I was like, do you want people to ask questions?
Right.
And when it's like a secret, or if they don't know what to do, it's like, it's uncomfortable for them. They would rather deflect or not, say hello or something like that. But when you open up that discussion with kids, with adults,
That's true.
I feel like in my life, I've given people a lot of grace until they don't deserve it.
Right.
I want them to
Well
ask
said.
questions. I want them to have, I want to be the safe environment for someone to learn. Because if those kids don't have a child with autism in their class, and no one brings up that safe environment, that place to be free to ask anything and me not get offended,
Right.
then they're never going to learn. And, you're missing that education experience.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, it can't become a taboo subject. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Right. So Cynthia, your expectation of your son getting married, did you ever expect that?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. I always prayed that he would, because I knew that he wanted to.
Oh,
But,
there you go.
Yeah, he did want to. He always told his counselor. They always talked about that. But I didn't really think that he would, because he never really dated or anything. But then when he started dating this gal and they started doing a lot of stuff together, it was really a blessing. And then to find out they were going to get married, it was shocking at that time. But they dated a couple of years though, but still.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's good then.
But during his younger years, I think we always kept the expectations high from him. I don't know, we just did.
Right.
And I always felt like he could do anything. And I would always tell him, where there's a will, there's a way, and you can do this, Eric. And then there were times that he failed and failed and failed, but we still just tried to keep going, that saying, you're going to make it, you're going to make it. Because he still wants to be in a zoo someday. And that's where his heart is. I don't know if he's going to be happy unless he is at one.
Right.
Just
Working in a zoo.
Yeah, working in the
You
zoo.
said be in a zoo.
No,
It's like, huh?
just working in one. Yeah.
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 He likes elephant poop. Remember the previous
Yes.
And tolerate that smell better than
Yeah.
musty.
better than musty books.
Yes. Right. That's a good one. Yes.
Exactly.
You
So
said,
he has a high expectation of himself because he wants to be at the zoo.
He does, yes.
and didn't he get his animal? What did he do at OTC?
He got his animal science 2-year degree, and then he started at MSU to go 2 more years. And then when they got engaged and everything was going on, he had to step out because it was just too much.
Right.
He might go back. He doesn't know, but he'd like to go back and get the 4-year, because he feels like most places want you to have a 4-year degree. Those are the people that he sees getting all the jobs.
Yeah.
Even though some, you can just have a 2-year degree. So
Oh,
depends on the place.
right. Well, it's still something to work on.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Something too.
Mhm.
Anyone else in expectations? Anything jump out at you on Elizabeth?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I thought about what I was going to talk about. Of course, nothing I was thinking as what's coming out, because it's just as we talk, things come out. But I remember, those early pre-employment type skills, and all the talk was stocking shelves and straightening. And I just thought, no, I expect something different from my son. And I just couldn't, I really struggled with that expectation. But in the last couple years, I've realized that's Nathan's strength, that's what he loves. He loves to organize. He likes to put things on the shelf a certain way and make sure they look good. So much so that last week, when we were at a local craft store, Hobby Lobby, he was approached and asked to turn in an application. Now, again, Nathan is my nonverbal. He's got some communication, but yet no social communication. Can answer questions. They might not be reliable, a lot of echoing. But yeah, he was actually approached. And just a couple months ago, he was asked by an older woman at our local Barnes & Noble was approached him and said, "Sir, do you work here?" As he was straightening the books. So, I really had to step back and think about that, because that expectation and that thought. I thought, no, he does not need to be put into a box, because that was the go-to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. But then when I realized that's what he loves,
and that
changed my thoughts. And yeah, it's not that it wasn't that it was a bad thing. It was just that was the box. It was one of the only boxes that they put, in some of those employment programs. So,
wow. So is he going to work at the?
Well, we're turning in the application tomorrow. And, we're going to talk, but he's also had a Walmart interested in him. Okay,
the Walmart,
as well. So just because of, people seeing him and watching what he does and those skills that he has.
Right. Well, and that's fantastic.
It is awesome.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if that's what he likes to do, then if he does it for 3 years or the rest of his life, who cares? I mean, if he's happy and that's what he wants to do, I think that's great.
And when I changed my expectation, it was more of a shift. It wasn't up or down.
True.
It was just sideways, because I don't think any less of that. That's something that's going to make him happy. It's very needed. It's good work, good labor that many people do. So yeah.
Oh, good. Well, Dawn, I'm going to jump in for you, and you can jump in. I've told this story a lot here. Stop me if I've already told it on this podcast, but when we went to Voc Rehab with JR for him to move up, and I won't mention names, obviously, I do like Voc Rehab, but the expectation was another job. That's for him. I went with Dawn on a job exploration meeting, I guess.
Did I go?
No.
Okay.
No, you didn't.
No, it was when we first decided that we were going to make another stab at competitive employment.
Yes, because JR was at the workshop at the time.
Right.
And so
opening a file yet again, yes. And I was going to go just for support. And then the person at the workshop couldn't make it because she was ill. But my expectation was really high for JR. And when he walked in and he wanted to give JR that job pushing carts, and I thought, are you kidding me? He's been 5 years at the workshop in a manufacturing job with boxes and time cards and working a factory type position. I forget, he was, craft products and, ripping off boxes and putting them back together and putting mustard and lining. My expectation just sunk for that particular person, because I don't feel like he didn't even give JR a chance to even explore what his skills were and what he could do. And my expectation was much higher for JR. Yeah. Because he was so experienced by that point. And for someone just to kind of lower that expectation, that would not have been good for him. And I think that's what irritated me the most. Anyway, my expectation was higher on that. And then it ended up working out fine. It was we've had bumps in the road for sure.
Yeah, we all have. But that was my I don't know how you felt about that, but I did kind of jump in there for you.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah.
I mean, even at the meeting.
No, that's fine. It's what do I expect JR
to be able to do. It does change, and I hope I'm pushing him in the right direction, pushing him north towards success. And I'm sure, and I've learned a lot from all of you. I think VR, I wish I had come prepared better maybe for that meeting. If I had taken some video. Here's what he's doing at SWI. Because people don't know.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to for VR. You shouldn't have to. They have his file. They know. They should. But anyway, another topic.
That's true.
You don't need
to
do
there's
all
some
that.
things. There are some things that I can show that he can do that maybe other people don't know. Here's an example. This is somebody from Enabled. So this is a faith-based disability ministry who has hired JR in some property management things. When a tenant moves out, leaves a mess, they just need a lot of hands to carry stuff out. And so this person has hired JR to do that. And so JR looks up to this person and contacted him to help us with his exhaust fan in his bathroom. JR he's going to do a replacement. So he goes on Amazon. He gets the replacement. He gets it ordered. It's delivered. And so when this individual came out, he was a bit taken back when he realized, no, JR didn't tell us a thing about this. He ordered it all on his own. He paid for it, and he wasn't expecting JR to be able to do that. So at some point, documenting accurately what he can do would have benefited. When I was thinking about this topic, one of the worst things that I've done in this journey, when JR was transitioning from early childhood to elementary, he didn't meet many of his IEP goals. Well, I went to the meetings. I did. I didn't realize that he wasn't meeting IEP goals and that I should be asking questions. Why is he not meeting goals? Is it because the goals are out of his reach? Or is it because he's not being taught in a methodology that he can achieve at? And I came to the conclusion, JR was capable and he was going to school every day, but he wasn't being taught in a manner that he could progress. And so got a little bit training in an ABA-like thing. I did what I called the poor man's version. So I'm documenting, a hybrid homeschool. So he's doing stuff for me, paper and pencil, that I then can take to the school. Jared just did this for me. Is he doing this for you? And the teacher's just looking at me. No, she hadn't asked him to do any of that. She was a speech pathologist, extremely trained professional. And when you saw JR's classroom, you realized why. You had a high need concentration. There was no time to teach. And so, looking back, I think that was a regret. Not challenging more. Why is he not meeting IEP goals? And because he wasn't meeting IEP goals, then he went into that self-contained classroom where they're just expectations.
So your expectation was higher for the schools? Or your expectation was higher for, you thought you should be, your own personal expectation should have been higher? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I should have been pushing harder for JR, asking more questions.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us nowadays, today we look back and think,
And we've got to give grace to ourselves, well to our...
Depends what you're going through at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a whole other topic is school and education and classrooms. Wow, that'll be a topic for another day. And not all bad, a lot of positive experiences too. But having worked in the public schools and, getting the other side of it and seeing what happens in special education classrooms, that's tough.
Yeah,
very,
it
very
is.
bad for teachers. Sometimes there's not a lot of learning going on some days. So, there's times I was like, this is why, But anyway, that's a whole other topic.
If
I have something to add. We were at an IEP meeting once also, and we'd gone to get an outside evaluation just to bring to the evaluation so people could read it and see it. And they said he needs a rich sensory diet. And then the educators or like a special ed person, well, that's something you get from home. That's food. Which,
oh boy,
that was, no.
Yeah. Little training for that.
Little training.
Yeah.
Food
a lot
would
of
be
training.
a lot easier.
That's right.
Yeah.
If that was just it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you only eat 5 foods for
That's right.
10 years.
Everybody needs
Because
to
of
go
the
to
texture.
the impact training too. I don't know if anyone's.
I did in the
if you guys
past.
did it
I
too. When at least know your rights and
We've all been.
Yeah.
That was part of all of our list when we were. And we're getting off the subject here a little bit, but I will say, with that impact training, your rights and all that, I just saw a whole other side of it. I had parents really fighting and really trying to nail a special ed teacher to the wall on something, and she was brand new. She just got out of college. She didn't know everything about autism. You can't do that to a person. Your rights and fighting, that you don't give her some grace and help her out here.
Right.
So in some instances, it's definitely
I just
worth
meant
it.
But the whole IEP process in general.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to just nail the.
Yeah. Well,
It's
meeting your goals. Like, why
Yeah,
didn't you?
Yeah.
Why didn't this teacher help my child meet the goals? And that's a whole
How
other
can
topic,
how can
but-
you develop expectations if you don't even know?
Right.
What to ask for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's by listening maybe to other parents' stories, people who are 2 years. And so, Mary, I mean, I've already told you, I was walking in your shadow. And I remember, speaking of impact, and Ruth Dunnigan, I don't have permission to use your name, but,
she was very helpful. Yeah.
I remember it was an impact training. It was at the library center, and my son at that time was still in elementary. And her son, Ruth Dunnigan's son, was there in the library. And during a break time, her son came in, talked to her, and walked out. And I remember going, you mean you just let him wander the library all by himself? And I,
It's
it's one, a bit jealous because,
Right.
At that point in time, I would have been the helicopter mom, I wouldn't have dreamed of being able to do that. But man, Ruth Dunnigan's son did it. Well, maybe.
Yeah. I think a lot of us back in the day all relied on each other a little bit because it was still so new and there's still so much information coming out about autism, low and high, and, and educating our teachers at the same time and each other and all that. So,
Yeah, because I remember I actually was thinking about that this week. With my first, she's 31 now. How I learned about autism was going to Project Access. We were living in St. Louis, came down to visit my parents, go to Project Access, check a book out. They gave you a big envelope with postage on it so you could put it back in the mail and get it to them.
Yeah.
And that's how we.
Then I went to the regional
started.
center. We were told all to go to the regional center and
A
what to expect.
Shout out to Connie Klein for Project Access. So maybe that's for another story on how Project Access got started and a little bit of its history.
Right.
Yep.
What about family expectations? You guys all have different family expectations?
I did. My daughter, my husband comes from a very large family. He's last out of 9. His family are wonderful. We had expectations for a family, expecting him to invite her different places. And it got to a point that we were out of town, and some of the family had got together, and they didn't invite Kelsey. And it wasn't the first time. It had happened numerous times. And I'm like, and that day when I found out that she hadn't been invited and they were in town, and I'm like, it just
crushes
burned.
you.
Yeah. I'm just like, really? One more time, and what if she finds out that they went off and they did something and she wasn't invited, how her feelings would be hurt. And I don't think that they really realized that. And so I was in the car with my husband and I was like, I'm going to send him a text. I'm going to put it out there. And so Roger goes, no, be nice. And so what I ended up, I grabbed his phone that it was from him.
Smart.
And he turned around and he texted and he goes, I wish you would include my daughter. I can't remember exactly what was in it. It was pretty long. And he sent it to every single one of his siblings that had gone. And I think even the nieces and nephews, because nieces and nephews had come into town and, they all got together. But did they invite Kelsey? No.
Oh.
So he put this in a text and I read it out loud to him in the car and I was like, are you sure we're going to do this? And he goes, it needs to be done. And I'm like, okay. I was like, you push send. And so he did. And it was quiet for a little bit. Nobody responded. I was like, oh no, what do we do? And, but then a couple of them did send back text, and apologized. And from here on out, when they come into town, like if we can't go somewhere, they'll actually, without us telling them, they will call Kelsey and say, do you want to go? And, that's huge.
Yes,
So see, I expected them to do this, but it took a little bit of communication to let them know how we feel and how she could possibly feel. Mm-hmm. And things changed. And they've been good ever since.
And like I said, did they realize that they had done that? Or see, I don't
think they realized it. I don't think they realized it until we put it in that one text.
Right.
And then they, but yeah, from here on out, they actually, they'll call her. Like, sister, my nephew had come in town and played for a band. We couldn't go. My sister-in-law called Kelsey without us even saying. And called Kelsey, hey, Kelsey, do you want to go? Because she doesn't drive, so she's going to need a ride. Yeah. She went by and picked her up and took her over there. And Kelsey had a blast.
That's neat.
I called her the next day and she told me about it.
Yeah.
So, I expected them to know, but then they didn't. And then that took that communication.
Right.
So expectations for families, sometimes you have to verbally say it because they don't get it.
Well, I also think that, I always...
Verbally or put it in text, one of the two.
Sometimes this is a fault of mine, is that I see everything from both aspects. So like Zion doesn't want, he doesn't show up a lot. He doesn't, want to be there. So they don't invite him or they may have not invited him. Our family's fairly good about that because they always want him there. But he definitely wants to be invited. He just wants to have the choice on whether to go or not. So,
interesting.
You still want to be invited. You want to be included, and be put in the group text or what? Not your group text, but the group invitation text.
Right.
But at least give him the choice. You know?
Well, because it hurts our kids' feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it can. I think it depends.
He's probably not going to go, but he wants to be invited.
Right.
Well, the education of that, I think, is probably sometimes what they need. Because maybe, like for Zachary, maybe they wouldn't invite him because you just wouldn't think he'd be successful wherever they're going.
Or he wouldn't want to go, or
right.
Or could he handle
something
it?
like that. For any of our kids, maybe it's just a lack of understanding and a little bit of education because families need that just as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
Unless you have like a lot of deep conversations with them while you're trying to,
right.
do all the logistics of having a diagnosed child and all the stuff that you have to do. So, giving them some grace once they've been educated and then expect something different from them. Yeah.
A different result. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know about, expectations that I think that if we're informing our listeners, I think that is something that they need to talk about or think about is expectations and speaking up rather than not being quiet. I just remember one time that just thought of it tonight, so hopefully this will go well with the family.
I know, I'm kind of worried too.
I know, I'm like, There was 2 family weddings close together in St. Louis. I'm from St. Louis. And there was 2 family weddings, and our son wasn't invited. One side of my family is very articulate, and if your name's listen, if your name's not on the invitation, you're not invited. I mean, that's just the way it is. If you're invited, they spell everyone's names out, especially to a wedding. So his name wasn't on it, and it wasn't the first time. And I think it was probably just the mode that I was in but my niece and nephew were invited, and they're all like 6 months apart. So they're very close in age. And I think one of them might have even been in the wedding, but my son still wasn't on the invitation. And I thought, are you freaking kidding me? He's not included in anything.
Then we're not going.
And he's not even included in family stuff. Are you out of your mind? Like, but there again, do they know the life we live? Probably not. But I was semi-close to them. And it just really rubbed me the wrong way. How dare you invite my niece and nephew and exclude my son, who is excluded and not invited to anything? And so, yeah, not going. That's what and plus, it's a big deal to get in the car, to pack him up, to educate him how to behave at a wedding, even if he wasn't invited. I mean, at that point, and he was probably in middle school, a little younger maybe, I don't know. But my expectation kind of changed there. And I thought, okay, this is the game we're playing. Now I have, we all have these things we have to tackle. I thought, okay, now I've got to tackle this issue, like with family. This stinks, but you know what? I don't have time for that right now. This is my life, but I really expected more. Sorry, family, but I did expect a little bit more from them. Not my immediate family. My in-laws are fantastic. My parents are great. My siblings are understanding. I still think there's a little bit, what's going on? Like with certain behaviors. But yeah, I expected a little bit more. And even now, I always get compliments on him and how wonderful he is and polite. And well, then ask him to do something, for crying out loud. Like, invite him somewhere. But I don't think like Zion, he probably doesn't want to go. I mean, I invite him to this fundraiser every year that we're doing for the workshop. And because I know he'll have fun. And I don't know if any of your kids do this. It's always a bad idea at first, but then they think about it and it's probably a good idea. But he always tells me, are you out of your mind? Quit inviting me to things. Like, I don't want to go. Why do you keep talking about this? And I'm like, because I think part of it is educating them, like what to expect. You might have a good time. You're going to know somebody there. This person's going to be
broadening their horizons,
yes.
Which again is an expectation that you're setting, that it's not going to be just the basement that they're comfortable with.
Right.
We've got to make them a little more comfortable in other areas.
Right. And with autism, a lot of times you have to tell them what to expect. Yeah. So they'll conform or be able to have a good time. So I was trying to tell him what he would, he still doesn't know if he's going to go this year, but anyway, I just try and involve him as much as I can without being too pushy. But on the same time, he does like his alone time. Like Zion, would he go no, he'd rather, and he is happy. And he doesn't ever say, I'm not invited to anything. I don't think he has that concept in his world. He has a lot of friends and he does a lot of things.
Thank goodness.
And he does do a lot of things. And I do think that's a blessing in disguise for right now. But yeah, I think the expectations, I always have to give Conrad expectations on what to expect, even at work still, and what to expect here and what to expect here. And then the whole family expectation thing. But I got over that. It was a long time ago, but it still kind of hurts a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But
and I'm back with Mary. I had expectations of that with my family when he was little, and had expectations of him being invited when all the kids were invited to go somewhere, even if it was like a zoo or to Silver Dollar City or just to go for a hike, and he wasn't invited.
Right.
And I'm like, why would you not invite because he didn't get invited anywhere.
Well, and then was he old enough that he realized he saw that he wasn't being invited?
Yeah, he did. And like I said, I'm sorry, family too, but it happened over and over and over. And he was always hurt by it.
Right. Right.
And then now they've all kind of gone their own way, so it's different. But yeah, he notices everything.
Does he? Yeah. I think my son doesn't notice a whole lot. Maybe he does more than I think, but I don't. And I do think that's a blessing in disguise a little bit for him. But it's harder on autistic kids that know what's happening. Yeah. It's very hard.
It makes me so thankful for Hannah. Tonight, Hannah invited Zion to craft night at her house, where everybody brings a craft, and you come over and eat. And she invited her brother, and he's probably going to be hanging out with a bunch of girls doing crochet. And He said, well, what craft am I going to do? And I said, well, maybe you could rebuild your Game Boy. He said, well, that one was really hard. I was like, well, it's all sitting in parts on my kitchen island in there. But so I'm so thankful for Hannah because she invites him to everything, and she is so kind and wonderful, and all of her friends are wonderful to him. And that's just part of the educating,
Right.
If you have your brother there, he has found friends just by him being in the room,
Right.
and
And
them
Hannah's
learning.
friends are watching how Hannah interacts with him, and so she's cluing them on how to do it.
Yes.
So that's
and the more comfortable to be around him and not even think anything of it. I mean,
Right.
and that's what we want.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like sometimes, I was listening to all your stories. I feel like sometimes, and this is just to make my life easier, is sometimes I temper Zion's expectations on what's going to take place, because I like the Social Security. What is it? SSI. What does it stand for?
Yeah. Social Security income.
Supplemental Social Security or whatever. Yeah. So I set this up that he was going to get this. I set it up too high. And then he's drastically, he gets denied the first time, the second time. And I feel like sometimes, and I should have done it with this, that sometimes I temper it so much because I don't want him to be defeated almost. And I think that's what we do as autism moms, where we want the expectation to be set high, but not too high, because if they can't ever reach it, we don't want their spirit trampled. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There is a fine line.
Or have a meltdown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We are going to go to the hearing. We're going to do the hearing for SSI, but
I don't think they'll let the parents in.
Well, I didn't mean.
Okay.
We just did the paperwork for it.
Right.
And but I just feel like, okay, you're gonna, you'll enjoy college. Let's try this. Let's try that. I expect you to, to graduate high school, and he graduates high school, and then I expect him to have a job, and then they fire him, and then he's devastated, and he's like, well, I've tried that, So sometimes there is a fine line, like you want him to have high expectations, but you also don't want to set him so high that he fails every time. You know what I mean? And that's with any child.
Yep.
I have what I call realistic hope. So I'm a realist, but I'm also fairly generally positive and have hope, whatever. But it does have to be measured, I guess, into what, just like the college thing. Like and that would be really like a hope and dream that would be on me. That would be my fault for having that, because that's obviously not, if I'm using realistic, thought process, that's not going to work. But what are the other things that fit within the realm of where Zachary's at? Right. That would be, the levels of expectation obviously are different for everybody. And you have to, Zachary doesn't feel bad about, like social interactions or not getting a whatever. He could care less about that, I'm pretty sure. He's just going to script some Veggie Tales and go on with his life. Right. But if you're struggling with that, I've learned a lot from you guys, all of you, just in the few, podcasts that we've done already, but just about that's what I think is so great about the spectrum. I'm not sure if that's the diversity and us learning from each other, like, with Zion driving or working or, your son getting married and all that stuff. Like it's been interesting, and I'm learning from you guys, about what expectations and all that stuff looks like for all of us, which I think helps all of us, even if we're not in the same spot.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It helps.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just reminds me, when my girls were young and really trying to explain that expectation and thinking about their life and, them facing certain disappointments as they grew. But I really broke it down to, it's what you feel inside. I said, I've been part of these big conferences and put these big things on, and it's wonderful and I feel good. I said, but I had that same feeling when I was putting on your Blue's Clues birthday party.
Right.
If not more. It brought me more pleasure, and it was a more simple thing, but it's really about what I felt inside, because what it was important to me in my life was these children in front of me. And so those same feelings, even though working on these big conferences and meeting, autism experts from around the world, and those are wonderful feelings too of accomplishments and reaching certain expectations. But I had that same feeling doing something just what people would think was,
just
could
a
easily
normal,
be, just a normal activity.
Right. I think that's true for all of us. I mean, don't you just get overjoyed at the simplest things that are probably normal for other people, and it just can make your whole day?
I still, when Nathan's able to say "I love you" and he says it, and he means it, and he's not just echoing it, I still feel like that mom of that 2-year-old, that 1.5-year-old that's hearing those things. I don't even know what age kids start talking, because mine we're working on it.
Oh, I don't know, Wanish. I don't know. So, I don't know either. I can't help you if that's true.
Yes, this is Heather and Elizabeth. Yeah. But and so we do. We get to feel some of those firsts over and over again, and it's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like socks. It's back to the socks, people. Yes.
Yep, Zion took his own car to get a service appointment yesterday.
That's awesome.
And we went through, I mean, it wasn't a real social story, but I totally went through everything that you have to do.
Right.
Like, you pull up to the door, you honk your horn.
Right.
If they don't open the door.
Right.
He was so nervous about it. But, and you almost have to feel like, you almost have to show him, oh, it's nothing. It's not a big deal.
Right.
You can do this.
Right.
And then when he left to go do it, Jason looked at me. He was like, he's going to go do that? it was so funny. And then Zion called me on the way home, and Jason said, I am so proud of him. Yes. I was like, that is a big deal go get your oil changed at the Hyundai dealership, where there's like 5 doors.
Exactly.
You don't know which door you're supposed to go to.
That's huge.
It's huge. I don't like doing that.
That makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Oh.
Didn't you in your mind make it like check? Like I always do that in my head. I always check things off, like, okay, got that done, covered.
Yeah.
That was successful. Yeah.
So what was Zion when he got back home? Were there any issues?
Did he say anything?
Did he say anything?
He said, he did. He said it was actually a recall on his car, and he was supposed to also get an oil change. But he said, well, they took care of the recall, but then they said the oil change was $119, and I just couldn't pay that. So he actually came away with no oil change. But he got the recall taken.
So hang on for part 2.
So part 2.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
That is good.
You can find us at www.navigatingadultautism.com, and the Facebook page is Navigating Adult Autism. And now we have an email, moms@navigatingadultautism.com.
Great. Thank you, Tara.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.